Hello, everybody. My name is Christina. This is Tony.
Hello.
We are here this afternoon to talk about whether you should roll over an IRA. Something that, we tend to hear that phrase used a lot, but I think it's really helpful to actually dive into what does it mean to roll over an IRA? Do you want to be doing that? And yeah, so just really excited everyone's joining us this afternoon. And I want to start by introducing Copper State Wealth Management's Tony D'Astes. Today we're answering the question, obviously, do you need an IRA rollover? But I want you to know a little bit more about Tony before we jump in. So you've been working in the financial industry for over 25 years, right?
Yes.
And at the credit union, 17 of those years.
A long time.
So you know a lot of people. Maybe you actually even know some of the people watching today. Because when you've been here for a long time, you start to pick up names and faces and building those relationships with people. So yeah, Tony is someone who's been around a long time at the credit union. And really, you've shared with me, Tony, that you find your passion in providing that dependable and professional advice for Copper State Credit Union members. And your areas of expertise are really in retirement planning and 401k rollover strategies.
Yes.
Awesome. I really like to ask also in these webinars some sort of fun fact. So I'm going to put you on the spot here, and I want to know if you could have one superpower, what would it be and why?
Well, I am a big Marvel fan, so I think if one superpower I'm going to be is able to fly.
Okay.
And probably because I go anywhere I want, do anything I wanted, and I wouldn't have to go through TSA, take my jacket and shoes off.
Yes, TSA is not the most fun part of traveling, I will say. So that's a good one. I like that. And you'd be able to be anywhere and have the experience of flying. I want to say on our last one, when I was talking to Anthony, I think he said teleportation, and it was similar because he just wanted to be at his vacation and not have to spend the time actually flying. But
Sure.
You're saying, you want to be in the air. You're going for it.
But I don't know how I'm going to get my family there, though.
Yeah, that's true. If it's only you. All right, so I do want everyone to be aware that securities are offered through Securities America Incorporated, member Financial Industry Regulatory Authority, and Securities Investor Protection Corporation. Advisory services are offered through PFG Advisors, Copper State Wealth Management Services, Copper State Credit Union, Securities America, and PFG Advisors are separate entities. Securities America and its representatives do not provide tax or legal advice. So, before we begin here, I'm going to go ahead and launch a poll. I want to see what everyone thinks about this question. The average person in the US changes jobs about how many times during their lifetime? So great guesses, everyone. Looks like everyone who voted said 4 times jobs are changed during a lifetime. I was shocked to find out that the answer is actually 12. So according to a Zippia.com article, the average person changes jobs 12 times. And even if only half of these people were actively saving for retirement, in a 401k, that is a lot of people with retirement accounts out there floating around. It also said that people are staying at each job about 4 years, which was really interesting. And that is quite a bit of time. If you are contributing to a 401k or a retirement account, you're building up
quite a bit of money in 4 years in some cases. So knowing what to do or what your options are to handle those funds, I think would be really helpful.
Mhm.
So Tony, given this pretty incredible statistic, what is the problem that you are noticing people running into, when it comes to having several, or even just two, anything more than one retirement account? What's the issue?
I think the biggest issue is people forget what they have and where they have it. You get so distracted with life events going on, and you don't remember what you did with it and how to get in contact with anything in there.
Or what, who the company was, what your online login is.
Yeah.
Really anything.
You get disconnected from your old employer.
Right.
So you're not getting day-to-day stuff active there. Sometimes you move and you forget to change the address there. Oftentimes even your old companies can change their sponsors and change the company that was providing that retirement plan. And
since you're not there, you aren't aware of that change.
You may not be aware of it because you may have changed your address. You need to give them the address. It gets more complicated. And now what you had before could be something completely different in there. Because sometimes some employers will keep your plans. If you were in a similar fund, they'll match you to a similar fund. Sometimes it may just go to a cash account in there, and you've forgotten where it's at. And you're not making what you thought you were making on it anymore.
Yeah, and it's just sitting there.
Yeah, I mean, it's still working, but it's working however you had it. And if you didn't,
and if you set it up 10 years ago, then
you may have been either
doing
too aggressive or too conservative at the time if you're not watching it.
Right.
In there. So it's still growing potentially however you left it.
Yeah.
And you just get disconnected, and that's not a good thing.
That makes sense. So you talked about several of the problems and potential problems that could happen with this scenario, but really, what I've always wondered, and potentially I think other people could be wondering this, Tony, is why can't I just do a bank transfer? Why can't I take my old employer's 401k or whatever it is and just transfer the money over to my new one? Why is it not that simple?
Well, since it is a retirement account and it's a tax deferred account, meaning you haven't paid any taxes on it, you have to follow the rules and set up.
So it has to do with the taxes.
Do the taxes.
Whether taxes are paid or not paid, that changes.
It changes because then you have to make sure it goes from one plan to another plan, that they do it the right way. Otherwise, Uncle Sam and the IRS are going to come calling,
right,
and you may owe some taxes on a transfer or movement that you did if you didn't do it properly.
Got it. And probably, I know there's contribution rules, right, and distribution rules that come with those types of accounts, depending on what age you are and stuff.
Yeah.
So that probably impacts it as well.
Yeah, if you were under retirement ages there, you could potentially end up with a big tax hit.
Yeah.
And extra penalties.
Well, and it's funny because you just think like, oh, I could transfer money from my checking account to my savings account in about 5 minutes or less. Why can't it be that easy? But when you really get into the details about these are different types of accounts, they have different rules. It really makes it necessary.
Yes, you want to do it the right way.
Makes sense. So the big question today, do I need to roll over my IRA? Should I be rolling over? Maybe we have multiple out there from a previous employer or from something else. Can you share with us just the general 4 choices that we have? And I know we talked about really there's 4 big choices or options that you have for an old 401k or IRA. What are those?
Well, the first one is going to be you can leave it where it's at. Keep it in the old plan.
So you can do that. You can just leave it there.
Most times, depending on the amount that's in there, you can leave it there. If it's a small amount, sometimes they push out with it there.
Okay.
But if you're over certain thresholds, depending on what the company allows, you can leave it there. And by leaving it there.
Well, and really, I mean, that is an option. Why don't we go over all 4 of these and then let's get into the details on each one. So if I don't want to keep the assets in a previous employer's plan, what are my other options?
The next is you can take those, funds and roll them over to an individual IRA account. in that, so you can do a tax-free transfer to that.
And that's just something that you set up yourself, or you would set up with an advisor, or like how does that work?
It's forms that you'd have to go to the institution, wherever you want to put it, and have either the forms from your old employer, or know how to take it out of your old employer. It's a phone call, a website saying I want to roll it over from A to B.
Okay.
With that, you got to follow the steps to do that the right way.
So
that.
rollover is really just the official term for transferring money from one retirement account to another retirement account, as long as it's the same type of retirement account.
Correct. You can do a rollover to an IRA that's your own account.
Okay.
You can roll it over to your new employer.
Oh, that looks like option 3 here.
Option 3 there. So if you started a new company and you want to consolidate things at the new company, you're free to do so as long as that company allows so. And again, it's forms and steps that you have to follow to do that the right way. And the last option is to take a cash out distribution and take the money and spend it and be taxed on it, and pay potentially penalties and holdings on that, later on, but that gives you some flexibility there. So you have a few different options, and each one is different.
All right, so let's go into each one a little bit here. So keeping the assets in the previous employer's plan. I know there has to be some, good and bad things about taking this route. So let's go into that a little bit.
Well, first of all, basically, if you leave it in the old plan, nothing's changing. You're going to continue to keep the tax deferral. So you've been putting money in there, most likely pre-tax dollars. That will continue that tax deferral on that. You do get protection from creditors anytime you're in a retirement plan and a RISA plan. A creditor, it's protected against creditors.
Nice.
If you're still working at that plan there, and you have it in your old plan, one of the options, the nice things about leaving it there and keeping it there is if you are working in your past retirement age, you're at 72 right now, you're not taking a required distribution out because you're still working and employed there. Potentially, there's low cost options in there, but your choices may be limited at times. It depends on what the employer has options for you.
Right.
Potentially down the road, if you left it there, employers could change plans and you go with the new plan, whatever they have.
And you're not going to have a choice in that, right?
No.
Because you're just deciding to leave it. So you have to go with whatever they do for as long as you're, not retired, essentially.
So, and then, if you're not in touch with them, you forget what you have.
Yeah.
Where you have
it's
it.
Probably the biggest one.
That is. And then what compounds that issue, if you've forgotten what you have, as I said before, you may be invested too aggressively or too conservatively. If you started this plan when you were in your 40s and you worked there and you left it there and you didn't change how it was invested, and now you're at retirement age years later, you could be not invested properly.
Because you're still invested as if you were 40.
Yeah. And things change.
Yeah.
So it is something you want to keep on top of.
So if I have, 4 different jobs and 4 different 401ks, theoretically, I could keep each one of them where they are.
You could.
But I have a feeling my life would become significantly more complicated.
Yes. What I see there is it isn't, because people just don't look at it.
Right.
And
I guess. Yeah.
it doesn't complicate things, but it's.
But you just don't know what's happening.
You don't know what's going on, and that's never a good thing.
All right. So anything else to share about this one, or are you ready to move on?
I think we can move on. I think we covered that.
Okay. So next up, rolling over to an individual retirement account. So this is not with an employer, correct?
Correct.
This is just me on my own.
Yes. That's
Okay.
an individual account you'd set up, and since it's an IRA account, a retirement account, you're going to continue the tax deferral that you've had, so you're not paying taxes on it, so you can roll it over from the 401k at the old employer to an individual IRA that allows you not to pay the taxes on that.
Okay, good to know.
Since it's your own account, you have the world of investment choices, whether it being conservative to aggressive to anywhere in the middle.
So many more choices than you would have if you left them there.
Yes.
Because you're in charge.
You're in charge. You can put it wherever you want, as long as it falls under that IRA rules, whether it's, you know, mutual fund, a CD, an annuity, stocks, bonds, real estate, multitude of things with that you can put that in. If you've had those 4 retirement accounts that you have left, you can now consolidate them all into one.
Oh, yeah, I see.
So
So
you
it's not like it has to be, oh, the first one goes into one IRA and then the second one goes into another one. You're really consolidating.
Now,
That's nice.
so then now it's easier to keep track of. Your life is not as complicated because it's all in one spot to look at that.
Well, I mean, it's not as complicated in that one particular area.
Yes.
Maybe complicated in other areas.
Yeah. Other options too is if you're working with an advisor, you're going to have potentially more advice what to do, and
So your
Other investors.
advisor could be managing.
could be managing that for you. And
Okay,
say,
good to
you
know.
know, based upon your age, your risk, this is what you should be doing. So you have someone to work with and a resource in there. Some negatives then is if there was something special you loved about your old 401k, obviously you left there, you don't have that choice anymore.
I'm gonna go ahead and venture to say, if you leave a job and you had a matching contribution, you no longer get that.
Yes, the matching stops, you know. And once you leave an old employer, you can't add to that old employer.
Oh, interesting.
And then,
So I can't just keep contributing to an old 401k. In order to like contribute to that amount again, I do need to roll it over in some way.
you'll be governed by the IRA rules at that point and limits under an IRA. If
Okay.
you can or can't contribute to that, but yes, potentially now you contribute to that IRA on a personal level. But again, there's rules to follow on that.
Right,
And it all depends on your individual situation of what's available there.
okay,
The other negative, potentially, if you move it over to your own retirement account, there could be fees to do so.
Mm.
And management fees on that new IRA.
And which side of those fees gonna happen on? The side you're taking it out of or the side you're moving it into?
Usually you're not going to have any fees coming out of the old retirement plan. There'll be fees that you have been paying inside of there, and everyone is different of what kind of fees are associated with the old retirement plan. But a new retirement account, depending on where it's at and how it's invested, you may have charges on investment management there.
Okay,
And again, it's all individual to the type of account you put that in. And that's something you want to make sure you know what fees you're paying, that you're not paying too much
right,
for what you're getting.
absolutely. All right, so let's go on to the next option. So I don't want to keep them where they are. I don't want to roll over to an individual IRA, maybe because I have a new job. So my option now?
So A, on the new job, again, you keep that tax deferral like you have because it's under a retirement account.
So with any of the first 3 options, we're keeping that tax deferral.
That is correct.
Okay,
You do get the protection from the creditors. So you get that same protection as you had in the old plan.
okay,
Again, if you're still working and you're past retirement age of up to 72 there, you're not taking your required distributions out because you're still employed there.
right.
You potentially have some low-cost investment options.
Because it's employer sponsored.
Yes.
Okay,
And then you may be limited though on your choices because again, whatever the employer provides for you
mm-hmm.
with that. And those choices may be good or bad. But again, just like consolidating your IRAs, you have everything in one spot. So it's a little easier to keep track of
Right,
at that point because you see what's there and you're not having to follow multiple websites.
Yeah.
Or things, so it's all in one spot there. But if you needed to use that money out of there could be some limitations depending on what the plan sponsor allows you to do, because now you're governed under a new plan sponsor.
makes sense.
Of whatever the rules are with that.
Wow, so we've talked about a lot. We've talked about a lot of options here. The final one is a very interesting one. It kind of sounds face value like a nice option. Getting cash always sounds good. Tell me about this.
Well, it gives you the most liquidity because now you have access to your cash to spend it.
Right.
But there's always a but in there. If you use it and you're not of age at 59 and a half, you're going to have some tax penalties.
Okay, so based on age, you could have tax penalties. What else?
If it's been a pre-tax investment in there and you've taken it out, now you're going to have other just regular normal income taxes on that.
So that's not the same as the penalty. You've got the penalty and regular income tax.
Correct. And whatever tax bracket you tend to fall in.
Okay.
Normally, when you take a distribution out of your retirement account and took it in cash, they're automatically going to withhold 20%.
Oof.
Pay that to the IRS right away. That may be what you owe. It may be more, maybe less. It depends on your situation, but they're going to take that off the top and grab some taxes right away on that for you there. So, and if you use it early, now that's less money you're going to have for your retirement.
Yeah,
And
that's a good point.
right now, you need everything you can to retire.
Yeah, all of us do.
Yeah. And someone asked me, how much do I need to save? It's as much as you can.
Yeah.
If you save too much, that's not a bad problem.
There are worse problems to have.
Yeah, it means you can potentially retire earlier. But and then also if you do take that distribution out, it's going to add to your taxes, could potentially push you into a higher tax bracket.
Because it's considered income.
It's taxable income for you.
So it's almost like 3 different ways you're being taxed.
Yeah.
It feels like that when it comes to a cash out situation.
It is, but if it's an emergency and you need the money to pay some bills and do things,
People do.
they do it. But it is something to talk to your tax professional about to see.
And make sure you're really aware, it sounds like, of what you're going to get into.
Yes. Seek some advice because you are in a situation here that, could cause you lots of penalties and taxes later on.
Yeah.
With that.
Okay, so if you really had to dial down what we talked about today, and I imagine that you have this conversation with people pretty often, right?
Yes.
Because they are, people are really changing jobs 12 times in their lives. And I don't know if that statistic included, your first couple jobs when you're a teenager. But regardless, if that is the case, all of this information really, what can we give as advice for people to try and remember today, something to take away from our session? What's going to be your most helpful tip for people?
I think, of the 4 choices that you have, there's not one right answer.
Okay.
Everyone has a different situation for what's going on in their life and at that point in their life. And you should ask professional advice. Because if you make a mistake, that can cost you in taxes. And right now, your retirement account is most likely your biggest asset outside of your house.
Yeah.
So you want to do it right because your retirement is depending on it.
Yeah.
If you want to be able to retire at the age you want to retire, a mistake here can cost you in the long run.
You could have to work for 5 more years.
Yes.
Because of a choice you're making in this.
If you decide to spend it early, and that just puts you much further back.
Oof. It's a rough thing to think about, but it's also, I'm glad I'm hearing it, and being aware of that before I were to make that decision. And obviously, I think all of us should have a professional that we're working with.
Yes.
Right? Because we can't all be experts at everything. So everyone out there, you're an expert at something, and Tony and Anthony and Ryan are experts at this. So I definitely encourage you to check them out. Their website is copperstatewm.com. So you can check these guys out there. Which branches are you at, Tony? Can you remind me?
I am located at the Bell Road office.
And that's like I-17 in Bell.
Bell Road. In the Anthem office, I see an Anthem. and then the Encanto branch in Central Phoenix.
So you're on the I-17 a lot.
I'm up and down the 17.
All right, well, that makes it easy to remember. I did send a link over in the chat if you could check that out. It's a survey, takes you to a little page, there's a survey there, and we do have a free download item. I thought this was a very fun, interesting little infographic. Basically, Tony, you guys have this as a resource. It's a risk analysis. So you kind of start at the top and answer a few questions, and it sends you on a path and lets you know kind of where you stand on the risk side of things. But very interesting. We're offering that for free for everyone who attended today or watched the video after. And you can just go on to that link, take the survey, and receive your free download. It will also be emailed to you after the event. Anything else, Tony?
I think that's about it.
All right. Thank you so much for coming on today, as usual. And we'll see everyone next time.
Take care.